The Sabbath, the holy Jewish day of rest, only appeared during the Babylonian exile, and not as many believe during the Exodus. I'm Elon Gilad. I write about Hebrew and Jewish history. Let me explain. The Torah tells us the Sabbath was given during the Exodus, but Nehemiah, the Jewish governor of Persian Judah, reveals a different story. When he arrived in Jerusalem after the exile, he found people weren't observing the Sabbath at all. He had to enforce its observance. This suggests something fascinating about the Sabbath's true origins. Looking at the books written during the First Temple period, we find no evidence of a weekly day of rest. No one is criticized for breaking the Sabbath, no one rushes to finish work before it begins, and armies don't exploit its strategic weaknesses. The weekly cycle we know today simply isn't there. The word Shabbat appears rarely, just 3 times in the historical books and 3 times in the prophetic books, but in a completely different context. In these mentions, we find people doing things that would later be forbidden, traveling long distances, changing military guard shifts, and even assassinating Queen Athaliah. Most tellingly, when prophets mention the Sabbath, it's always paired with the new moon, and always in that order: new moon and Sabbath, Chodesh v'Shabbat. Here's why. In Babylonian, Shabbatu meant the day of the full moon, and that's what Shabbat meant in ancient Hebrew too. Ancient Judah celebrated 2 monthly festivals: the new moon, Chodesh, at the month's start, and the full moon, Shabbat, in its middle. It wasn't a day of rest at all. It was a day of celebration when people would visit prophets and the temple. Only during the Babylonian exile did this monthly celebration transform into the weekly day of rest we know today, and Nehemiah was the first to bring it to Jerusalem. The fascinating story of why and how this transformation happened is revealed in my book, Historia Sodit shel Hayadut. Now you know.